Hello and have good day for VieTESOL participants. And my name is Nguyen with my co-author Dr. Đào Xuân Phương Trang from Hồ Chí Minh University of Education, and I am Nguyen from Thanh University. And we have already conducted a study on the impact of speech communities on learners' communicative competence. Well, you can see in Vietnamese context of various communicative situations, English has shown its significance for the group's integration. However, the process of communication between Vietnamese and English native speakers who employ English as a means of communication had to deal with several obstacles and challenges. Research have revealed the disparities in cultures may be an important factors accounting for the setback in communication. However, the cultural diversity probably cannot depend on the breakdowns in communication and on types of misunderstandings in communication. And in this presentation, we want to have the closer look at the issues from different perspectives and explore the relationship between the speech community and the language used in reality. In the process of communication, it involves a lot of participations from the senders or the receiver, or I mean the speakers and the hearers, to convey the message by different types of channels. And when the receivers conveys obtains the message, and they can respond to the senders through the feedback. And this process will have to deal with the encoding and decoding of the message for the intentions of the senders. However, the success of communications cannot be ensured for all the cases. Therefore, the learners of language, or I mean in Vietnamese context, the Vietnamese learners of English language and the foreign language, they need to enhance the communicative competence. And the communicative competence includes four main types of discourse competence, grammatical competence, social linguistic competence, and strategic competence. It's quite obvious in Vietnamese context that a lot of Vietnamese learners, when they graduate from high school, they can master some linguistic aspects, such as the vocabulary or the grammatical structures, but they cannot successfully communicate with other people, or it means they may lack some strategic competence or some social linguistic competence to ensure the success of their communication in reality. And in this diagram, it refers to the relationship between language, cultures, and the worldview. The speaker's values and the beliefs and attitude will strongly affect on the interpretation of the message, and how they look at the words or their worldview will be absolutely influential to the success or the interpretation of certain messages. Sometimes you mean something, but the hearer, they can understand in another way. And the dimension of the intercultural communicative competence for ICC include 4 dimensions. And nowadays, in communication, it's not only involved with grammar or vocabulary, it's about the communication with other peoples around the world. Therefore, we had the new concepts of intercultural communication competence by section 20 and 12. The intercultural communication competence refers to the ability to successfully communicate with other peoples around the world from different social and cultural backgrounds, and therefore the learner needs to enhance their awareness, their attitude, their skills, and their knowledge. The knowledge refers to what they should know about the speakers or the hearers or the participants of other speech community, and the skill refer to how they should apply something, and the attitudes should be enhanced by why we should do something. In the literature review, we had the new concepts of speech community But actually, the concept of speak community is quite controversial among the scholars. It spurs a notable interest among different linguists, but they haven't agreed house about the concept or the exact definition of speak community. Language is the properties for individuals and is also the social possession. Therefore, the speak communities also refer to the group of community that share some rules for the conduct and the interpretation of speak. And it's about the rules, how we should use the language and how we should understand certain features of communication in communication among those members of that community. For another notion, the speak community refer to the agreements on the social meanings of linguistic parameters such as code switching. And over the times, this notion is developed by use 2006 to refer to a group of people who share the set of linguistic norms and expectations. And this concept has developed with expectation. It's not only about the rules of the norm and how we should expect the meanings of the use of language for the members of the speak community. After that, Brian Patrick has referred the concept of speak community to the groups of people who share common characteristics to communicate and interpret with each other. And the process of communication and interpreting will be two different processes. Sometimes you mean to convey some message, but the hearers can understand and or they can interpret in another ways. It may be about they underestimate the meaning or they overestimate the meaning. Refer to the context of the rationales of our context in within university, we can say that our learners, they had to deal with misunderstanding in communication. They can have confusion what they say, what they mean to say, and what they actually convey. And they can have some incorrect pronunciation. They use the sound from their mother tongue to apply in speaking English. Therefore, we come up with a research question of what are the impacts of speak communities on learners' communicative competence at Winterthur University. And for this one, we apply in the setting of the faculties of foreign languages of Winterthur University on 104 years English majors of translation interpretation. And that language proficiency ranges about from mid-intermediate to upper intermediate level. And we apply those methods of qualitative and quantitative at the same time to fully analyze different factors that affect the success of communication with the instrument of a questionnaire and the in-depth interview. And through the survey, we asked the student about the problems they usually face when communicating with foreigners. We could select most common ones in different areas, including pronunciation, vocabulary, grammars, and the manners of speaking. And after that, we invite some typical students to have an in-depth interview into different types of analysis and to understand the underlying reason for those problems that they had to encounter. And this one refers to the backgrounds, origins of the members. And you can see, because the university is located in the south of Vietnam, therefore about 3/4 of the participants from the south of Vietnam, with a very small percentage of members from other regions, right, the central and the north. And among the participants, about 2/3 of the participants have the previous exposures to the cultural misunderstanding that they will try to share their experience in cultural misunderstanding with the researchers. And the results of this study reveal that in terms of pronunciation, the most common mistake refer to the connected speech that they sometimes they use the chop with different separate chunks like in Vietnamese language, and they had some difficulties with the sound variants. They cannot reduce the sounds variant and they cannot understand the variants that the native speaker want to convey. Another point for pronunciation is the basic markers of intonation. In Vietnamese, we have the basic markers for Vietnamese words, but in English, it's not the case. And it has a strong effects of the first language tones on English. And sometimes they pronounce the sounds that do not actually exist in their own language, such as the, just, and the final sound. They also have problem with English intonation at the same time, and they try to mix the sounds between English and the Vietnamese at the same time. Another point about the grammar, and we can see a lot of errors in the grammatical structures of the Vietnamese learners. And for example, they apply the words forward translation because they have the assumption about the total equivalence in grammatical structures between Vietnamese and English. And they have the wrong assumption on the speaker. They cannot fully perform the locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary speaker to convey the functional purpose or the function of the inflection or the utterance. And this one happens due to the no total equivalence between the grammatical structures of two languages. And therefore, it leads to the inaccurate grammatical forms, which means they cannot remember all the grammatical forms in English, and sometimes they apply and they refer to Vietnamese grammar and they apply into English, they cause the inaccuracy. Another aspect in communicative competence about the vocabulary, and actually it's very difficult for Vietnamese learners to remember the exact vocabulary in the right context. Therefore, they have no or they lack the contextual awareness about in what context we should use these words or other words, and they actually try to replace the words with the closest meaning, but they are not actually sure about the intended meaning or some secondary meanings or some figurative meanings of the words in particular context. They make assumption on the first meanings of the words, on the common meanings of the words, and apply directly into communicating in English. And another point refers to the lack of connotation. It's not about the contextual meaning. The connotation refers to the emotive meaning of the emotion and the feelings of the speakers and the hearers, and they cannot fully figure out the feelings when the speaker uses some words, and they are not so aware about the effects on the feelings of the hearers when they make use of some words, such as like the word skinny, it had a negative meaning, but I'm not aware. They try to use that word to describe people who are not fat, something like that. And the next one refers to the cultural awareness. It's actually quite hard for all learners of English to enhance the cultural awareness because the cultural awareness requires the actual exposure or experience in the target culture. Therefore, they make the assumption on the total equivalence between two languages that may result in the miscommunication and misunderstanding among the speakers. Sometimes they apply the wrong felicity condition. They cannot ensure the felicity condition. And like they try to say something for the wrong person in the wrong context, and the message cannot be fully conveyed. And lastly, for the politeness, And the Polanyi strategies refer to the strategy to make the hearer to feel at ease, but sometimes they're not aware of some taboo words in English, and they use those words with the exact translation in Vietnamese, and they may make the hearers feel uncomfortable with what they want to say. Therefore, based on the aforementions of the difficulties in the experience of the learners in English, the finding will prove that the speak community have formed the way people use the language with the norm and interactive manners, as well as understanding other utterances. The Vietnamese speak community had their own ways of using the mother tongue, which in turn causes L1 inference when the student use L2. However, the small scope of study may result some limitation to generalize the findings, and the mistake found may be limited to this group only. Although this study will have some implication, like this refer to the recommendation for the social linguistic competence should be raised or should be enhanced among the learners. And the learners of English should raise their awareness about their identity in terms of culture, in terms of society, to successfully communicate with other people. And the teachers try to diversify the teaching methods to raise awareness to learners about the diversity among the features or among the cultures of the participants in communication. And the process of education should be about the outcome based, not only the content based, which means they need to try to set the real context or the authentic context for the learner to practice communicative competence. And after that, they can enhance their ability to successfully communicate with other peoples around the world from different contexts in English. And for the outcome-based education, the teacher try, and it will be also beneficial for the policymakers to identify the needs of the market or the need of the daily context to produce more appropriate and useful or practical approach to teaching the language skill for English majors. And the discourse strategy should be enhanced among the learners. And when they can enhance the strategies, and they will have some ability or some strength to master the ability to interpret or to understand the intended message of the hearers. And if they cannot have some strategy to figure out the meanings of the hearers, they will have the miscommunication and misunderstanding, and they will try to apply the effects of L1s onto L2, and it's not successful for the effective competence, so the communicative competence among the learners. And that's the end of our presentation. Thanks for your listening, and if you have any question, you can email us at our address. You can email either Dr. Đào Xuân Phương Trang or email me at our emails on the screen. Thank you for your time.